Hi, I'm Kevin Willmott, and I'm a writer-director of motion pictures, and I'm here at the wonderful, terrific, and amazing Indiana University Cinema. Film is a powerful art form for a lot of reasons. I think mainly because you get to see life outside of yourself. They take literature, they take plays, they take so many aspects of our lives, and then it's heightened. And then a great cinematographer can come in and make it look almost bigger than life, almost bigger than our lives. And the other part of it is that you get to go any place in the world. And I think that's there's a project I have that I want to do. It's on my big, long list about an African-American who is an extra in Birth of a Nation in 1915. And this is when movies are just getting started. And so no one even knows what movies quite are yet. I mean, there's just a few people that know what they're doing. And certainly, when I look at Birth of a Nation, I'm thinking the black extras, especially, probably all the extras, but especially the African-American extras, I wonder how much they understood what was going on here. And so it's kind of an example of why it's so powerful, because you can it's all the beauty that movies can provide, take you to another amazing world that you would never probably see in your life, and telling great stories, pulling from the best of literature and the best of plays and then actors kind of take it to another level. But then also there's kind of, it can be a form of evil, and it can lead to people getting killed, like that movie did. And when you look at it from that point of view of someone who didn't understand what film is, it kind of it reminds you of how dangerous it still can be today. And you look at the propaganda films, and you look at what Hitler did in Nazi Germany, and you even see some of the things that get made here now from right-wing crazy people. And you see kind of how film is this great thing that liberates and frees people and educates. I mean, for me, the education part of film has always been a big part of why I think I love film, and because it educated me in so many different ways. But then, there's the other end of that story, and it can also make you ignorant as well. So my brother and I, just my brother and I in this one, we went to see The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And we'd seen a couple of the other spaghetti westerns, but this one was like, the epic spaghetti western, right? And so, and afterwards, my brother and I were talking about it, and it's and he's like in fifth grade, and I'm in third grade, and we were talking about it like film critics, and I was talking about how the close-ups and the music and how it didn't look like any other movie we'd seen before, really, and we were just kind of enthralled with it, and I was really enthralled with it, and so then. My birthday came up, and we always you got one thing for your birthday. So it's like, well, what do you want? And I said, I want the album of the soundtrack to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And my mother's going like, what is that? So I grew up in this little small town. So there's no record store really. So we had to go to an appliance store, and they had a few records they sold. So you go to the appliance store, and I pick out this album, and she says, "That's what you want?" I said, "Yep, that's what I want." And so we get home, and I play it on. We end up with those big long stereo things, and we play it, and my mom and my brother are sitting there, and they're just going like, "What the hell is this?" and then that's when my brother afterward he said, "That's when we knew you were weird." So, that was one of those things where it was the first time I had seen a film and I saw it as a film. Because you go to movies and they were just magic. You just get lost in the story, and you don't think of it as a construction. As there's a director and there's actors and there's all that stuff. And so that's the first time I started looking at movies as a thing that you created, and that kind of stayed with me after that. And so I did various things, and then the blaxploitation movies were the other big kind of moment for me. I was in high school then, and Gordon Parks, who's from Fort Scott, Kansas. I'd seen The Learning Tree, which was the big kind of moment for me to kind of see. There was a making of The Learning Tree that they showed a movie, and then afterwards they had the making of kind of thing, and they showed the making of The Learning Tree, and he was in Fort Scott making The Learning Tree, and he's directing, and he's pointing, and he's got a cowboy hat on, he's got that pipe, and it's like, wow, look, I want to be that dude, and then when he did Shaft, forget about it. We thought that was the coolest movie of all time, and it is pretty doggone cool, But for us at that time, especially though, we went to James Bond and Clint Eastwood, like those spaghetti westerns. We never got to see a black hero like that really got to be cool. That got the girl, that got the money, and didn't die in the end. And Shaft was the first one of those for us, and so it was a huge thing, and so that was the other thing that really kind of has always stayed with me, and that's when I said kind of to myself, I can be a filmmaker, because there were black directors of some of those movies, in Gordon Parks obviously, and so you could kind of see yourself in him, and the fact that he was from Kansas really let me know that that's not out of reach. I did theater originally. There was no film school in Kansas, so the closest thing I could get to film was theater, obviously. It taught me dialogue. It taught me, good dialogue, I think. It taught me how to weave story into dialogue, which my screenwriting buddies who weren't theater kind of educated, they don't know how to do that. And so there were several people in the plays that I mean, one of the big influences is the Greeks for me. I learned several things from the Greeks that I think, have really stayed with me. One was kind of about showing violence off the screen. And I was in the play, I played Oedipus one time in a play, and a couple times actually. And that whole idea of not showing violence and showing the aftermath of violence. And I don't do that in all my movies, but I've always found that the aftermath of violence is a lot better than showing the violence. That's one of the things I've always admired about Law and Order, the original Law and Order. They always came upon the crime afterwards, and then you'd see other shows where they show people running around being chased, and you kind of went, that's so exploitive, especially on a show that's kind of a whodunit, really. And so that's kind of one of the big ones. In that same period, David Mamet was a big influence on me in terms of his dialogue, and people like Charles Burnett, and then of course, as I mentioned, Gordon Parks was a huge influence, and Spike, in the sense that when I, first was went to NYU, then the question is, what are you going to do when you get out, and how are you going to do this thing? And the question was really, are you going to try to stay in New York and try to make it here, or are you going to maybe go back home? And the thing I kind of learned from Spike before I ever met him was that he's a New Yorker, and he had all these people in New York that he could call on for help to assist him to get his first movie made. And I said, I don't know anybody in New York, and they don't know me, and they don't know my story, and they don't really have any connection to what I'm trying to do. And I tried for a couple of years, and it just didn't work. But then, so I said to myself, I'm gonna go back home, and I'm gonna try to make my movie there, where they at least know my story. And so I did that, and it was like this best move I ever made, you know. And so in that sense, I think Spike influenced kind of all of us in terms of how do you get your first thing done, you know. I watched a lot of movies as a kid. We went to movies every weekend, and I think just, you know, seeing, you know, such a wide variety of movies. The only movies we didn't go see were Disney movies. We didn't go see Disney movies. We went, you know, we were too cool for that. You know, but we went to, you know, everything. We didn't want to do anything that was like a little kid thing. So we went to monster movies, and we went to Godzilla, you know, Godzilla's Japanese Godzilla movies. You know, there was a lot of them when I was a kid, and really, we just loved those movies, and that has stayed with me as well. And then I think the problem pictures of the late 50s and 60s and early 70s with Sidney Poitier in particular. Those movies, you know, really kind of taught me that you can take the problem of society, whether it's anti-Semitism or racism or whatever the issue might be, homophobia, and you can make a movie that can address these things.
But you think of yourself as a colored man. I think of myself as a man.
And I learned a lot about those issues from those movies that was being made. Stanley Kramer, his movies in particular, is a big influence. And I think he kind of made Sidney Poitier a star. And the movies he made with him, Defiant Ones, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Home of the Brave is an early one, which James Edwards, which is, I think, is a really, you know, fine film in a lot of ways. All those movies kind of said to me that I can make society better through film, and so that was a big thing. I think I make films for everybody. You know, I mean, that's the easy answer. I think when you're thinking about the audience and when you're writing the movie, or when you've made the movie and you're thinking about, you know, who's going to be seeing this, I kind of try to think about when I'm at the movies and the things I want to go see and the people I see in the theaters when I'm at the movies. And, you know, movies have kind of changed some. I mean, the COVID kind of messed things up, and theaters are kind of struggling a little bit, and, you know, getting people to come back and all that weird mess. But so outside of that, I kind of, it's a memory of kind of how it used to be a little bit. And so, you know, it's for everybody, but you kind of break it down to hip folks that want to see a movie about the things that I typically make movies about. So there's the hip folks that like kind of my stuff or the kind of people I work for. And then there's just regular folks who hopefully you can get them somehow to come to the movie. You know? And those are the people that I really kind of want to affect more than anybody. You know, because they're the people who aren't thinking about things as much. And it's funny because in some ways it's kind of like a political campaign. You've got these 12 people out here who are still undecided. You know, and you're going like, how can you be undecided in this world we're living in right now, dude? But they're out there. And in some ways, that's kind of the folks that you hope can stumble on your film, especially now on streaming and that stuff. And as a kid, when I think about going to the movies, and everybody just went to the movies, and a lot of times I don't think they knew what they were even going to see. They just went, you know. And I wish it was a little more like that. now we're kind of too informed, and we have too many distractions and stuff, and it's harder to get those folks in the theater so that your movie can maybe put the whammy on them. And then there's always those few people that are the haters, and I've had, like with my movie CSA, very, I mean, it goes for the throat, and a couple stories that people have shared with me. I didn't see this, but people in theaters that told me these stories. One was in Omaha, and a buddy of mine was in the theaters watching the movie, and he said there were some skinhead types that were in the audience, and they were laughing and having a good time with the movie for the first half of it, and then as the movie progressed, they got quieter and quieter, and finally they just left. And that's exactly kind of how I designed it, was that I wanted to suck you in to make you think that this is a safe kind of racial comedy that kind of like an All in the Family episode or something, where we're just going to laugh about racism and stuff, and it's all cool. And then as the movie goes on, it starts to reveal itself more, what it's really about, and what the Confederacy really is, and all of that. And then by the end, it's no longer fun in that sense that you thought it was fun in the beginning. And so folks like skinheads won't be having fun anymore with the racism. And that's kind of how you want the audience as a whole to experience things. You kind of always hope that you make a movie that you're having that kind of control with. Typically that's not the case, but that's always the idea. Well, one of the things I always tell folks is that you got to try to find your voice. And one of the things that I think I did right, I did a lot of things wrong, but one of the things I did right was I made these small films that were about things I cared about. And I didn't let, working for Hollywood or trying to work for Hollywood guide me in the things I was interested in and the things I ended up doing. That my ideas, I always felt, were just as important as their ideas. And not in that egotistical way, but just in judging of ideas, and I could never do my films within the limited budgets the way they can do their movies, and that didn't really deter me or make me feel I was inferior, and that's one of the things that blaxploitation movies taught me. That seeing those movies as a kid, and the desire that we had to watch ourselves on the screen in almost any way possible. And even though those movies are often flawed in a variety of ways, we didn't care as a kid because we were seeing ourselves and we were seeing stories that we wanted to see, and we were heroes for the first time in a way that we never been heroes before. And so that whole thing has always kind of stayed with me, and it's taught me to not allow other people to judge or define success on their terms. That you have to define success on your terms. And defining success on your terms allowed me to go and make any movie I wanted to make. I mean, I'd have people come up to me and say, I want to make this movie that's kind of like CSA. It's really dangerous, and it's really kind of, it's going to piss people off, and I just don't think I can do it. I'm on Twitter, and I'm on this, and I just worry what people are going to say. And it's like, I tell them, I'm not on Twitter. I don't really care what people think. You have to believe in your ideas, and you have to be willing to step out there and take the criticism that comes with that. But don't self-censor yourself before you even tell the story, And that's kind of what kind of young people often kind of do in terms of, especially now with social media and all that stuff kind of sitting on top of people's heads. I worry that if that stuff had been on top of my head when I was making CSA, maybe it would have affected me. And I'm glad I learned from that movie and other things, mainly activism, that you just can't let people and the outside influences guide how you feel and what you think. Can't tell you how important that is. I think it's so important. The other universities have places they can show movies, but they don't have an art house cinema. They don't have a separate kind of facility for this. And that's the thing that is so powerful and unique and important. Because one thing, especially now, is that I think young people are being divorced from this tradition a bit, and they don't. COVID, as I mentioned, kind of has hurt us a little bit in terms of people going to the movies in general. And so we've got to find a way to get folks back, and they're coming back, but it's, I think, still a little bit of a struggle. And the art house cinema on campus can kind of, has the opportunity to kind of teach them about going to the movies again, and not just the power of movies today, but the powers of the movies from the past. And now everyone kind of has their own channel. You don't have to do anything you don't want. You can just watch the little stuff that we've programmed for you right here and just stay in your little bitty box. That's a problem. And it's a problem not just for theaters. It's a problem for democracy. It's a problem for just people having an understanding of what it means to be a full-fledged American. And so the art house cinema on a campus is kind of the place where you take all of the things that a university is doing, all of the different subject matters, all of the different amazing, things you can be and learn, and then it can kind of end up here, and then you get to see it, and you get to see it in a story form, and you get to be educated by it in a way that doesn't seem like education. Every university should have one of these. And I've always regretted the fact that KU has not had one. We have an art house theater downtown, and we've utilized that for years, and I'm glad we have that. But in some ways, it's better when you have it on campus because it all fits within the liberal arts education of a university.